There are two kinds of people who come back into your life after they have broken you. The first kind comes back sorry. The first kind comes back changed. The first kind comes back with their hands open and their eyes full of something real. And then there is the second kind, the kind who comes back only when they realize that someone else is doing the thing they were never willing to do, loving you well. Serena drove through the rain, with her eyes fixed straight ahead, and her hands clenched tight on the wheel. She had spent 3 years trying not to think about the man she had left. She had spent 3 years telling herself she had done the right thing, that he had been too intense, too wounded, too much for her to carry. She had told herself all of that, and it had worked, right up until the moment a mutual friend sent her a photograph of Marcus Reed standing outside his office building, smiling at someone just off frame, and she realized the smile on his face was one she had never once managed to put there herself. That was the morning she got in the car. That was the morning she drove across the city, in the rain, to the building with his name above the door, a building that had not existed. When she walked away from him, she did not know what she was expecting to find. She did not know what she was hoping to say. She only knew that somewhere, in the time since she had left him, Marcus Reed had become exactly the man she had always wanted him to be, and she needed to know if that meant there was still a place for her in the life he had built. There wasn't. Stay with me, because what happened in that office that afternoon, what Marcus said, what he chose, and what it cost him to say it without a single raised voice, is the kind of ending you do not see coming until it is already over. 3 years earlier, Marcus Reed was not a man you would have described as cold. He was a man who had loved too completely and too unwisely, and had come out the other side, believing that this was the only way love worked, that it consumed you, stripped you down, and left you with nothing but the memory of what you had surrendered. Serena had been his first real relationship, not his first romance. He had dated before, the casual kind, the easy kind, but she was the first person he had let into the parts of himself that he usually kept dark and closed. He had trusted her with the version of himself he was most afraid of, and she had taken that version, the wounded, trying, imperfect version, and eventually decided she couldn't love it back. She left on a Tuesday in November, not with cruelty, not with anger, with something almost worse, a tired, gentle honesty that made it impossible to be angry and impossible to argue. "I care about you deeply," she said. "I just don't think I can be what you need me to be." Marcus had stood in the doorway of the apartment they shared and watched her leave and said nothing, because he didn't know what to say to that. What happened after was the part no one talks about when they talk about heartbreak, the part that isn't dramatic, the part that is just absence. Waking up in a space that still smelled like someone else, eating the same meals at the same times, and feeling the silence as a physical weight, the part where you decide, slowly, without meaning to, that the problem wasn't her, the problem was you, and you carry that belief the way you carry a stone that you've forgotten is in your pocket, until one day you reach for something, and you feel the weight of it, and you wonder how long it's been there. For Marcus, the stone was this, the belief that his love was a burden, that the way he felt things, deeply, completely, without reservation, was something that drove people away, rather than something that deserved to be received. He built his company around the same principles he used to survive: precision, focus, control. Reed Construction grew from a two-person operation to a mid-sized firm with 3 active projects and a reputation for delivering what it promised. He was good at his work. He was less good at letting anyone past the version of himself that the work had built. Then he hired Amara, not because he saw anything in her that changed him. Not in the beginning. He hired her as a project coordinator, practical, efficient, exactly what the role required. She came in on her first morning, put her things down at her desk, and within 2 hours, had reorganized the document filing system that his team had been complaining about for 8 months. Nobody asked her to do it. She just saw what needed doing and did it quietly, without announcement, without waiting for permission. Marcus noticed. He didn't say anything, but he noticed. Over the weeks that followed, he noticed other things. The way she listened in meetings, not the performative listening of someone waiting to speak, but the real kind where you can tell that every word is landing somewhere and being considered carefully. The way she disagreed with him, directly, without apology, but without cruelty. Once, over a project timeline he had set too aggressively, she laid out her reasoning in 3 clear points and waited while he processed them. He changed the timeline. He didn't explain why. She didn't ask for an explanation. She just nodded and moved on. He thought about that exchange for the rest of the day. He had spent 3 years building walls around the version of himself that felt things. Amara didn't knock on those walls. She didn't even look at them. She just sat down nearby and talked about something else and waited. Not because she was patient by strategy, because she was patient by nature. And somewhere in that patience, without either of them naming it, without a single conversation that was explicitly about any of it, Marcus Reed slowly started to heal. The morning Serena arrived, Marcus had not thought about her in 6 weeks. That was the longest it had gone. He remembered noticing the way her absence felt, lighter lately, like something he'd been carrying for so long that he had almost forgotten how to stand without it. He was standing at the window, watching the rain, when he heard the knock at the door. "Come in." Amara entered with a stack of documents. She was wearing something different today, an elegant blouse and trousers, a quiet confidence in the way she moved. Marcus glanced up. "You look." He stopped. Amara raised an eyebrow. "I look what?" Marcus cleared his throat. "Good. Professional." She smiled. "I'll take that." For a moment, the gray of the rain outside felt very far away. Then the intercom crackled. "Sir, there's a woman in reception. She says you'll know who she is immediately." Marcus frowned. Before he could answer, The office door opened. Serena walked in, the way she always walked into rooms, like she had decided before entering that she belonged there. She was dressed beautifully. She always dressed beautifully. But Marcus noticed, even from across the room, the thing behind her eyes, that her expression was working to conceal. She was not here to apologize. She was here to assess. "So," she said, looking at Amara, "this is her." The room went quiet. Amara stood calmly. "Good afternoon." Serena ignored the greeting. Instead, she moved through the office, the way a person moves, through a place they used to know, cataloging what had changed. "You've done a lot with this space." Marcus didn't move from where he stood. "What do you want, Serena?" "I came to say congratulations." "For what?" She looked toward Amara. "For finally looking like yourself again." It was expertly delivered. It always was. Serena had a talent for saying things that sounded almost generous and landed like stones. Amara quietly gathered her documents. "I'll come back." "No." Marcus's voice was steady. "You don't have to go." Serena let out a short, deliberate laugh. "Interesting." She folded her arms. Something behind her eyes shifted, the performance slipping, just slightly, just enough, to show what was underneath. She looked directly at Amara. "Did he ever tell you what I did to him?" Amara answered without hesitation, without cruelty, without performance. "He told me what he needed to." "Oh." Serena stepped closer. "Did he tell you that the reason he spent 3 years convinced he was unlovable," she smiled, "was because of me?" The room held the sentence. For a moment, like a stone dropped into still water. Marcus had gone very still, not because the words were wrong, not because they hurt in the way they once would have, but because he recognized them for what they were. Not honesty, a test. Serena was waiting to see if the wound was still there, if she could still open it, if he would reach for the old anger, or the old grief, or the old version of himself, who believed he deserved what she had given him. She reached into her bag, removed a photograph. 2 people much younger, standing together and smiling. A smile Marcus no longer remembered how to make at that time. She placed it on his desk. "I thought you'd want this. Let me pause here, because this is the moment I want you to sit with, not the arrival of the ex, not the photograph, not the carefully delivered sentence, designed to reopen an old wound. The moment I want you to sit with is what happened in Marcus's chest when he saw the photograph, because it wasn't anger, it wasn't grief, it wasn't the ache he used to feel, that low, persistent thing that used to follow him through every ordinary Tuesday, whispering that he had lost something that couldn't be recovered. It was something he hadn't expected. Recognition, not of the image, though the image was there. 2 young people smiling, one of whom no longer existed. Recognition of the distance between the man in the photograph and the man standing in this office, holding the same photograph and feeling nothing that needed to be protected, nothing that needed to be defended, nothing that needed to be explained or argued or mourned, just the quiet acknowledgement that something had been real, and it had ended, and here was the proof of it, and he could look at it without flinching. That was the moment he understood that he was actually free, not because Serena had let him go. She hadn't. She had come back because he had let himself go. This is what healing looks like when nobody writes about it. Not a conversation where someone says all the right things. Not a dramatic apology that lands perfectly. Not a single moment of clarity where everything makes sense at once. Just a Tuesday in the rain, a photograph on a desk, and the discovery that the wound you thought would define you forever had quietly closed while you were busy becoming someone different, while you were building something, while you were showing up, while you were learning slowly that the people who see you, without needing to fix you, are the ones worth keeping near. Amara had never tried to fix Marcus. She had never sat him down and explained his patterns to him, or offered insight into why he held people at a distance. She had just been there, consistently, honestly, without agenda, and somehow, without anyone planning it, that had been enough. Marcus looked at the photograph for a long time. Then he picked it up, looked at it once, and smiled. It was a particular kind of smile, the kind that doesn't perform for anyone, the kind that comes from somewhere, that is completely at peace with what it is looking at. He opened the drawer, placed the photograph inside, closed it quietly. "Thank you." Serena stared at him. "That's all. That's all. You're not angry?" "No." She stepped closer. Her voice dropped. "You don't hate me?" Marcus looked at her. "The way you look at someone you have carried for a long time," and finally sat down. Not with anger, not with coldness, with a kind of gentle clarity that was somehow harder to absorb than either. "I spent a long time believing the way I am, the way I feel things, the way I love, was the reason you left." He paused. "I've stopped believing that." Serena opened her mouth. "You changed," she said, and her voice had shifted now, less controlled, less performance, something real moving beneath it. "I did," Marcus said, "but not for you." He walked toward the door and opened it. Not dramatically, not as a statement, just because it was time. "I genuinely hope you find what you're looking for, Serena." His voice was completely sincere. "But whatever it isn't here." For a moment, Serena stood, completely still. She had come prepared for anger. She had come prepared for grief. She had come prepared for the man she remembered, the one who could be rattled, could be needled, could be pulled back by a well-placed sentence and a well-timed photograph. She had not come prepared for peace. Peace was the one thing she did not know how to enter. She looked at Amara, and for the first time since she walked in, the performance left her face entirely. What replaced it was something much quieter. Regret. Not anger. Not jealousy, or rather, not only jealousy, just the quiet, adult understanding of a person who has realized, perhaps a moment too late, that she chose wrong. Not because Marcus was perfect, not because what they had was redeemable, but because she had been the one who decided it wasn't worth trying, and she was standing in the aftermath of that decision now, watching the version of him she had always hoped existed, hold the door open with a steady hand. She walked out. Her heels were quiet against the floor. The sound faded down the hallway until there was nothing. Marcus remained by the open door for a long moment. Then he let out a slow breath. Amara watched him. "How do you feel?" Marcus turned toward the window. The rain had stopped. Through the glass, the first thin lines of light were breaking through the clouds. "Free," he said, and he meant it. In a way he had not meant anything. In a very long time. The afternoon passed quietly. After that, the office returned to its rhythms. Phone calls and project updates, and the particular hum of a building where people are doing real work. Amara came back with the documents. An hour later, she placed them on the desk, said nothing about what had happened, did not treat it as something that required discussion or processing or space, just put the documents down, sat across from him, opened her notebook. "Shall we go through the timeline for the Northgate project?" Marcus looked at her for a moment before answering. "Yes," he said, and they did. That was not the moment Marcus realized that what was building between them was something he wanted, that had happened months earlier, quietly, without announcement, the way things happen when you stop trying to control them. But sitting across from her that afternoon, watching her move through the project notes, with the same steady focus she brought to everything, he thought about what she had said to Serena. "I know what he needed to. Not I know everything. Not I know his wounds. Just what he needed to." And she had left it there, without elaboration, without using it as a weapon, or a gift or a platform. Just a fact, stated quietly, in defense of someone who didn't ask for it. Later that week, he told her, not with a speech, not with something carefully prepared. They were reviewing the final documents for a project, and she made a small joke about his handwriting, which was genuinely terrible, and he laughed. And in the silence after the laugh, he said, "I've been trying to figure out how to tell you something." Amara looked up. "Then just tell me." So he did. That the last year had been different. That he had noticed what she had done. Not just for the company, but for him, without ever intending to, without ever making it about her. That he wasn't sure what that meant yet, but he was sure. It was something. Amara was quiet for a moment. Then she said, with the same directness she brought to everything, "I know." And the smile that followed was not surprised. It was the smile of someone who had known for a while and had chosen to wait until the moment was actually his, because that was who she was. Outside, the city moved on. Serena moved on too, though it took longer than she expected. She did not come back to the building. She did not send messages. She sat with the weight of what she had walked into and what she had walked away from, and eventually, slowly, she started to understand that you cannot miss something you were never willing to fully hold. It was a hard lesson. It was an honest one. Marcus kept the photograph, not on his desk, not somewhere visible, in the drawer, where it lived quietly, as a record of who he used to be. Not a wound, not a warning, just a document Proof that he had loved before he knew how to be loved back. Proof that the distance between those two things could be crossed. You just had to decide that crossing it was worth the journey. There is a version of this story where Serena is the villain, the woman who broke a man and came back when it was too late, the woman whose timing was wrong and whose choices were worse. And I won't tell you that version is unfair, because it isn't entirely, but the version I keep coming back to is the one that has nothing to do with Serena at all. It's the version where Marcus Reed picks up a photograph of the person who hurt him most, looks at it once, and feels nothing that needs to be held on to. That version is not about her. It is about what it took for him to get there. 3 years of building something, months of showing up, a year of being around someone who looked at him without looking for what was broken and found instead someone worth knowing. The people who hurt us do not define us, and neither, this is the harder truth, do the wounds. They are things that happened, things that shaped, things that, over time, if you let them, become material, not for bitterness, not for armor, but for something gentler, for the particular kind of wisdom that only comes from having been down and chosen slowly to stand back up. Marcus didn't stop loving deeply. He didn't learn to love less. He learned to love differently, from a place of knowing that the way he felt things was never the problem. It was always the gift. He was just waiting for someone who understood that. The rain had stopped. The light had come through, and neither of them, sitting across from each other in a quiet office over a pile of project documents, said anything about any of it. They didn't need to. Some things don't need to be named to be real. They just need to be chosen again and again on ordinary Tuesdays in the rain. That was Marcus's story. If you've ever been the person who loved too much and thought that meant something was wrong with you,